Territory-wide 24-hour curfew continues for 7 more days.
It is a matter of food security and the great debate, health versus economy. These and more stories when 284 News returns.
Is business slow? Cash flow down? Hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media at cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works. Welcome everybody. It's Monday, April 20th, 2020. I'm Ron Grant.
And I'm Kyla Kenesha Forbes.
Kyla, lots going on in the beautiful British Virgin Islands. Let's get right into it.
Yes.
Premier and Minister of Finance, the Honourable Andrew A. Foy, has announced that the 24-hour curfew has been extended from Sunday, April 19th to Saturday, April 25th. Premier Foy said from 6 a.m. on Sunday, April 19th until April 25th, a new curfew engagement goes into place. For these 7 days, the curfew will be in effect for 24 hours daily, and residents are to remain at home. He said, and I quote, "This is important for containing the spread of the virus and to allow health officials the time they need to do thorough contact tracking. I want to point out that we must keep in mind and keep our minds open to any possibility, and the applies to our sister islands. That applies to our sister islands." The territory's leader said Cabinet has decided that gas stations will be opened during the curfew to serve essential workers. Supermarkets, pharmacies, water delivery services will also be opened for only serving deliveries, and approved home delivery services will facilitate deliveries from the supermarkets and delivery of LPG gas. The Premier said that the delivery provision will be prioritized for seniors and vulnerable groups. He added that all businesses other than those approved by Cabinet must remain closed for 7 days for the entirety of the curfew period. Premier Foy gave the assurance that families in need will have access to food and medication during the new curfew period. He said, and I quote, "The government will be financing basic food packages, which are to be delivered to all persons, district by district, and to those who are in need." He said, and I quote, "During this extended curfew period, no one under my watch as Premier and Minister of Finance in this territory will go hungry." Following Cabinet's meeting over the weekend, Leader of Government Business also announced that $2 million will be allocated to the Health Emergency Operations Center from the government's Consolidated Fund for Food Provision. In addition, Cabinet decided that $800,000 was allocated for a house-to-house garbage collection and recycling initiative. Now, viewers, in a live announcement yesterday, April 19th, Premier and Minister of Finance presented the logistics of the delivery of basic food packages and medication for all persons in need in each district. Additionally, the territory also learned during that live broadcast that test results from the Caribbean Public Health Agency confirmed a 5th positive case for the coronavirus in the BVI. This new case was among the samples sent to the Caribbean Public Health Agency on Friday and has been confirmed to be someone who came in contact with the female patient who recently passed away due to complications of COVID-19. This brings the total number of positive confirmed cases in the BVI to date to 5. Of that number, there has been 1 death. 1 patient is now in isolation, while 3 have fully recovered. Kyla, as the territory continues to maneuver through the global pandemic that is COVID-19, and understanding, of course, that the extended curfew arrangements are in light of the territory's first reported COVID-19 death and additional case, residents have quite a few questions. Here are a few of those questions we received. Will government continue to keep us on 24-hour lockdown every time a case is detected? Based on the physical layout of the BVI, how effective is the recently implemented delivery service to residents? If you continue to keep persons locked down when allowed to be out, doesn't this heighten the chance of person-to-person interaction once allowed out? For example, supermarket fiascos. Why do the rules keep changing, and why do the rules seem to only apply to some residents and not all? The economic impact, of course, Kyla, continues to be of paramount concern to residents, particularly as they begin to realize there isn't much assistance that could be offered from the government of the Virgin Islands. We see now where the issue of health versus economy, something that you're going to get into a little bit deeper in this newscast, comes into play. Residents through various mediums are now pleading with local leaders for an opportunity to keep themselves and businesses afloat. What are your plans to keep the local economy afloat without the UK assistance? This is another question from a viewer. Don't complete lockdowns delay and almost always set the stage for a staggering contraction of the economy? Kyla, again, we see some burning concerns coming forth from residents all across the Virgin Islands, as there is definitely a high level of anxiety going around that's attached to this pandemic. Despite government's efforts to see us through and do their best in this pandemic, residents are very concerned of all walks of life. We see persons of different economic status who are seemingly just the tensions are high and they want answers. So first of all, we'd like to to encourage our residents to continue to abide by the curfew laws that have been set in place, and we also want to encourage residents to continue to conduct themselves in an orderly and mannerly fashion when having to access essential services. Again, persons in need, in particular seniors, the vulnerable, anyone with children under the age of 12, should call 852-7688. Again, that number is 852-7688.
Most definitely, Ron. But Ron, as you speak about anxiety,
yes,
my question to you would be, before going in and transitioning into this other news piece, when the announcement of the extension first came about, what was your first thoughts, or what are some of the things that got you worried?
Well, I definitely did not have anxiety. I think as frustrating and stressful as this entire ordeal has been, I have been able to maintain an enormous amount of composure for my family and making sure that they're okay. But I would not say anxiety. I was just really worried for a lot of the persons who had kids throughout the community. Throughout the week, I've been getting messages and seeing messages from persons in regards to food supply. So that would have definitely been the first thing on my mind, because believe it or not, Kyla, we might not want to admit it, but a lot of persons particularly don't know how to shop for a long period of time. So my first concern was definitely for those persons who may be running out of food.
Well, I don't know if you read my mind, but definitely a matter of food security.
Very
I think
important.
For many persons, their first initial worry was, how will I restock my cupboard? Due to extension of the lockdown, the residents are unable to come out and shop, leaving them with just a few options. Tough it out with what you have, hire personal shopping and delivery service, rely on delivery service of supermarkets and other entities, or rely on the government's food supply system. Now, firstly, Ron, let's address those persons who are unable to feed themselves. As you mentioned before, Ron, Honorable Andrew Foy, our Premier, ensured that no one would starve during this 1 week extension.
He said he's going to ensure that no one starves.
Yes, he assured that no one would starve during this extension, and also that $2 million have been allocated to this this cause. So now, for persons, as you said before, who are in need of assistance, are encouraged to visit the BVI food supply locator. Now, to find this link, viewers, you can look on our Facebook page at 284 Media. You can also look on the government Facebook page and their website. And we just want to reiterate again, persons in need, in particular seniors, the vulnerable, and persons with children under the age of 12, should call 852-7688. Now, Ron, you had a list of questions from the general consensus, and also too, I have here a list of concerns from the general public, and some of these questions are as follows. Do the minimum number of delivery services and supermarkets have the resources to sustain the level of demand? Because persons are now complaining about busy telephone lines and back orders on websites. So this must be overwhelming, knowing that this is probably the only way, or one of the ways, that you can get any sort of food supply. Another concern is persons are expected to pay for groceries plus delivery fees of over $20. For persons who are unemployed or have unlimited access to cash, this puts them in a really uncomfortable and even a disadvantage.
Of course.
Yes, some supermarkets are only taking orders of over a certain value, for example, over $150. Is this rational and is it fair during these times? Also, due to this extra incurred fee, does this encourage more persons to turn to the government for help? You know, some persons are wondering if the government is equipped to deal with the influx of requests that they probably have already received and are about to receive.
Those are really some those additional questions are really some good ones as well. One of the things I was thinking about as you delivered that story and some of the concerns is there's a thin line sometimes between want and need.
Yes.
And I think that definitely discretion should be taken into consideration all across the board as residents really discern what they need and what they want. While we agree, and I think the food shortage issue is a main one, and there are definitely persons who are suffering and a little bit nervous. I do think that our wants sometimes overpower our needs, and in these times we need to understand that perhaps we can substitute or just do without for the time being.
I do agree, but I think the food supply and just food security is one of the biggest anxieties right now. I think a lot of persons on many platforms have been speaking about their cupboards, having nothing in their cupboards to eat, and I think just the influx and the demand that these services and also the government will have to deal with, I think is really going to be overwhelming. But just wishing, our viewers and all the people out there in the British Virgin Islands all the best. And as you said, Ron, really good point, really rationing and knowing the difference between a want and a need. So viewers, still ahead, we're going to have a debate. Is it health versus economy? And BVI Banks offer residents options amidst COVID-19. All of this and so much more when 284 News returns.
Some claim that the age of a true gentleman is far behind us, but here at 284 Media, we disagree. He may appear in different guises today, but the values and ideals that make him a gent still stand. 284 Media proudly presents its newest talk show, The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, with yours truly, Ron Grant. A show poised to help guide modern-day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen. Don't worry, it's not all about suits and bow ties, but raw, real-life lessons that translate to grounded, community-minded, well-rounded men. The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, a 284 Media production.
Welcome back, viewers, to 284 News. Now, all we've been talking about is the announcement of yet another 24-hour lockdown. Since the announcement of the third consecutive 24-hour lockdown, residents of the BVI have taken to social media, radio shows, and other platforms to voice their opinion and concerns about Cabinet's decision to implement another lockdown. The great debate surrounding health versus economy surfaced on many platforms. Residents are going head to head as they are debating this issue. Some agree wholeheartedly with the government's decision to keep the country locked down, while they trace and manage the impact of the virus. Others are infuriated by the decision to extend the territory's lockdown period as they are worried about the extensive damage this will have on our economy. Now, Ron, these are all great points. And I think it's not a matter of right or wrong in this situation. And I think we have to realize that it's a very hard decision that our leaders have at this point. Me, myself, Ron, might have my views. You yourself, Ron, might have your views. But our government are unable to please everyone. You know, this is a decision we have seen many countries have been faced with. And as we know, and now we are seeing the longer the 24-hour lockdown occurs, this is starting to become a concern in our little British Virgin Islands. Ron, I think a lot of persons seeing over in the U.S. where Trump, he spoke about the fact that he is ready to open the economy. Some persons looked at it as though he was crazy because it was like, okay, over in the U.S. has so many positive cases, a full outbreak, with New York being the epicenter right now. And Trump is basically saying by May 1st, he is ready to open the economy. And now we are seeing these discussions here in our little island. You know, as of today, the BVI have been on a consecutive lockdown for 24 days. The territory first went into lockdown on the 27th of March. This is 24 days of persons not working, 24 days of some businesses not making any income at all, 24 days of persons making no additional income. So Ron, I want us to take a minute just to look at some statistics. A survey conducted by Higher BVI for the period of March 27th to April 7th. This survey ranged participants across many industries: tourism and hospitality, construction, financial services, telecommunications, retail, and much more. So now if we look up on the screen, here we see how businesses has been affected during the 24-hour curfew. Now we see 47 have reported that profits have either increased or decreased. 35 have reported full closure, and 9% reported partial closure during the 24-hour curfew up to the 7th of April. Now next, in another chart, here we will see how companies' compensation salaries have been affected. 65% of companies reported there are no changes. However, 15% of companies reported that there was a reduction in salary. And now, lastly, here we see the changes in companies' human resources plan. So now we have 9 companies reported there was no change in human resources plans, and 5 companies have reported that employees were temporarily terminated. Now, Ron, as I've been saying, these statistics are as of the 7th of April. So we do understand that this information may have changed since the 7th. But here is just a minuscule picture of what we may be dealing with. So now, Ron, with saying all of that, what is your thoughts and what is your position as it pertains to health versus economy?
Kyla, I think your reference to the United States and the protesters was a good one. Obviously, we don't have protesters here, but we see where the level of anxiety is rising.
Yes.
As I stated before, we're seeing this from all economic levels. We're seeing this from persons of all walks of life. What I think is paramount and what we should take away from this is that in the United States, we see where they've been giving somewhat of a handout, a very small one.
Right.
And you hear the person saying, we don't want a handout, we want to be able to work. We understand the pandemic is real, but we want to be able to work. Now, here in the BVI, I think what we're seeing is persons realizing, in truth and actuality, that whether they wanted handouts or not, they are probably not going to happen. So the risk of them falling deeper into debt or not being able to make any money is a lot higher. So in their minds, something needs to be done so that at the end of the day, we can still be able to meet our requirements and take care of our families. But the issue, the great debate, as you so eloquently said, health versus economy, is one that we really have to look at, because persons would like to say, you know, it's a life or death. Do you want your life or do you want money? But at the end of the day, when you take food away from someone and they can't eat and they can't provide for their families, that is a different type of dragon that we're seeing. And it's not one that should be taken lightly. I think the concerns of Virgin Islanders are warranted. I understand from as a business person myself, I do understand the depth of their despair and their concerns, and I think it's something that should be looked at wholeheartedly from a government perspective. Obviously, what you would have wanted to be able to contribute to your country, you can't necessarily do that. So let's kind of figure out how we're going to ease the economic burden that we're about to face, because it's not going to be easy, but we have to find a way to leverage that somewhat. Yeah,
we do have to find a balance. I think, as you said, I think on some sides, some persons are saying, you know, it's a matter of life or death, we should stay inside. And then there's some people that are saying, my cupboards are empty, I have no money, what am I supposed to do when I am inside? And I think when it comes to this debate, you have to realize that persons are always going to side with the side that they are bound to benefit from. Or because it's easy for someone who, you know, are making a salary and is still being paid from home to say, you know what, let's stay inside. But then the person who, you know, don't have food in their cupboards, needs to make money, don't know where their next cent is coming from, we're saying, listen, we have to come up with a plan to not be kept inside, because as you rightfully said in your story before, I think persons are asking these questions, and persons are very concerned as to what is next, and what if another case, God forbid, another case has to present itself? Are we going to be locked up yet again? And I think so many questions are arising, and the anxiety is very, very high.
One of the things we also have to look at, and this conversation has come up in the past as it pertains to our social ills. Now is the time where we're going to begin to see a lot of our social ills and inaccuracies come forth. We've already seen conversations being had about domestic violence. So I think at the end of the day, we also have to be cognizant of the fact that perhaps everyone's home situation in the territory is not the best.
And financial situation.
Correct. So some persons are now becoming a little bit wary as it pertains to being in that confined space, whether they are working or not, and their concerns kind of weigh in on the anxiety. One of the things that a concerned resident raised, and I think it's very important for us to remember, is in the aftermaths of Hurricanes Irma, we saw a lot of deaths, and they were in no way related to the actual storm, but the level of stress that Hurricanes Irma and Maria put on the economy, it took its toll on a lot of Virgin Islanders, and that's something that we don't want to see repeated. So we have to find a way in every sense of the word that we can to try to lessen that curb.
I do agree, Ron.
Now, speaking of economic impact, the recently held Money Matters e-forum hosted by the Financial Literacy Program at the BVI Financial Services Commission in collaboration with the BVI Bank Association saw all banks in the Virgin Islands offering options for clients amidst COVID-19. The forum focused on the who, what, when, and how, and saw presentations from all 4 banks. The VI Consortium shared that all of the 6 major lending institutions in the British Virgin Islands have said they will extend loan moratoriums to their customers experiencing hardships as a result of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. This was reaffirmed by officials from First Bank, VI, Banco Popular de Puerto Rico, Scotiabank, the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, CIBC, First Caribbean International Bank, and VP Bank during the e-forum on Thursday. Panelists retrieved questions related to commercial loans, mortgages, installments, loans, credit cards, and lines of credit. A moratorium indicates that through a process, there can actually be a delay with the payment for a loan, generally for a defined purpose, according to Senior Vice President of First Bank, Mr. Angel Dawson of VI. Dawson said, and I quote, "In this particular case, we know that many of the businesses and individual consumers are being affected by the global pandemic that we're experiencing through no fault of their own. They've been asked to either shutter their business or not report to work." He confirmed that First Bank is offering moratoriums on the various lending products. Now, retail manager of CIBC First Caribbean International Bank, Fabian Devonish, said CIBC First Caribbean International Bank is authorized to offer payment moratoriums to all retail and commercial clients. He said it's the same process for mortgage and consumer loans, and clients are given the option to opt in to the payment waiver. He said, and I quote, "It is not automatic. They can reach out through our internet banking platform and request it, or they can reach out to their individual lenders or myself as a branch manager and advise us that they are interested in taking the payment moratorium," Mr. Devonish said. He said CIBC First Caribbean is offering as much as 6 months, and the client gets to decide the length of the moratorium. The interest will continue to accumulate, so clients can continue to pay the interest during the moratorium period, thereby avoiding extending the loan, or there can be a full payment waiver of no interest and no principal, and this would be capitalized, or the accrued interest added to the principal at the end of the moratorium period, and the loan amortized. For credit card products, this is automatic, where the bank has marked forward payments to the next due date of June 2020. However, clients can opt out and make a payment. At Scotiabank, BVI branch manager Marvin Scott said they are offering a customer assistance program to all categories of customers, and this was widely communicated on social media. He said, and I quote, "We have an extensive moratorium program, the mortgage moratorium that we're offering. Customers are required to opt in. It is not automatic. There is an offer to waive principal and interest payments for up to 3 months in the first instance, with the option of going for up to 6 months. Mr. Scott said, depending on the maturity date, as interest will continue to accrue on the facility, Scotiabank will amortize that incurred interest accordingly. However, he advised customers who are able to continue their payments to do so, as this is not a pass or loan waiver. He noted that there are costs associated with it that the customers would be required to pay, but it will not impact their credibility and ability to borrow in the future. For more information, customers are invited to call Scotiabank's 24-hour contact center at 494-3130 or the branch at 852-2120, or you can visit Scotiabank online. Now, Vice President, Commercial Credit and Relationship Manager at Banco Popular de Puerto Rico, Mr. Darren Vanterpool, confirmed that Banco Popular Puerto Rico is also offering moratoriums across its lending products, both on the personal and commercial space on principal and interest for up to 3 months in the first instance on the mortgage side. He clarified that this is not a forgiveness of the debt, but an accommodation to allow the individual or the business to not have to make that debt obligation payment or at a given month. He said, and I quote, "The allowance is usually for when there's a shortage in cash, whether it is cash flow problem in the business or if there's an income problem in the case of personal income. So the accommodation is to allow persons to put a financial plan in place so that the agreed moratorium has expired. When that has expired, the agreed moratorium persons would be in a position to resume payment. Because of the high volume of calls regarding the mortgage product, Banco Popular has set up a call center with a local number to initiate that process. This is an opt-in program across the board regarding credit cards. Banco Popular clients can opt to skip their payments for up to 3 months as well. For personal loans, clients can forbear principal and interest. Mr. Vanterpool announced that Banco Popular Puerto Rico has a digital platform online where clients can register interest and apply for moratoriums for personal loans and credit card products. He said for mortgages and commercial loans, clients are encouraged to reach out to the bank officer. Now, client advisor at VP Bank, Sasha Creaky, said VP Bank is offering moratoriums to a certain extent by deferring the principal portion of amortized payments, but it must be noted that some of their clients are able to make their full amortized repayments even during this time. She said, and I quote, "At this moment, we are not taking a blanket approach to our clientele and offering moratoriums to everyone. What we're doing is actually asking persons to communicate with us in order to proceed with the application process. The financial ability of the client will be assessed to determine how long the moratorium would be needed for. In a case where the client is not able to meet their obligations, the term of agreement can be extended," Ms. Creaky added. Now, Chief Credit Officer at the Territory's Indigenous National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Irvin Mead, said the National Bank of the Virgin Islands is offering moratoriums for mortgages on both retail and commercial customers who have incurred hardship as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. He said the offer is a payment deferral of 3 months in the first instance. Additionally, Chief Executive Officer Joy Penn explained by saying, and I quote, "On a request-only basis during the 3-month moratorium period, loan customers with fixed blended payments will be required to pay nothing. However, interest will continue to accumulate during this moratorium period and will be due in the future, subject to payment ability. At the end of the moratorium period, your normal monthly payments would resume. Unless negotiated otherwise, a lump sum payment will not be demanded upfront, as this would be deemed burdensome to most persons." Mr. Mead said customers are required to request the offer either by telephone. You can contact your relationship officer or loans officer at 2933. That's 852-2933 or 852-2902, or by emailing loans@nationalbankvg. Mr. Mead said customers are required to follow up with written request. Now, Kyla, a very detailed story, but I thought it was very important for our customers and our clients and our viewers all across the Virgin Islands to know what their options are. This has been a huge concern for a long time since the COVID-19 pandemic. Persons have been concerned, they've been worried about their loans, their credit card payments, and here we have a very detailed outline where each of our lending institutions are saying there are some options for you. And as you would hear a lot in the story, it's not automatic, so which means, viewers, that you have to take the initiative to reach out to your banks to see what your options are. But I think, and I'm thankful, they have made this available to the general public.
Most definitely, Ron. I think it's so great to see our banking community
coming together,
stepping in and doing what it takes during this global pandemic. As you said, persons just need to pay attention to the detail depending on your bank provider, but definitely a great and timely story at this point, Ron. So viewers, that's it for today's news roundup. Be sure to follow us for daily news updates at 284media.com and like us on Facebook at 284media and 284BVI on Instagram and Twitter. I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes.
And I'm Ron Grant. We'll see you again tomorrow as we deliver your daily dose of local, regional, and international content. We're 284 News, your source for honest and impartial news right here on 284 Media. Happy Monday, everybody. Take care.